Judy, who is from our sponsor, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op.
Yes, thank you.
Those of you who've been inundated with, buy me, buy me, buy me, we're a better product. So we're very pleased to have the co-op continuing to underwrite the cost of putting together our Eggs and Issues program. Also, for this particular program, SCORE is underwriting, it's serving as our business sponsor, and that's what pays Valley Vision, so we can then share this program with the Valley, and I'm always pleased to have folks that I bump into saying, it was a really good program, thank you a lot, because folks who can't come because of their schedules do watch it, and we get very positive feedback. So Dick Fickey from SCORE is going to say a few words about what SCORE offers here in the Valley.
Well, thank you, Linda. I'm not sure how many people really know what SCORE does, both on a national level as well as on a local level. But we'll start first with the acronym SCORE, which is rather outdated now, Service Corps of Retired Executives. And I say outdated because probably about 1/3 of the 13,000 volunteers around the country are active business people. And such is the case with our own chapter here, the Mount Washington Valley SCORE chapter, where about 1/3 of our counselors, we have 13 active now, that 1/3 are still active business people. But the motivation for both the active business people as well as those retired such as myself is to give back to the community. Somewhere along the line somebody has helped us and now we have the opportunity to help someone else. But more important, be an influence on the local economy. And such has been the case with our own chapter, not on a terribly large scale, but you think of some of the companies here in the area that SCORE has helped. The Met, the Village Bakery, Maestro's, Rapid Insight, fairly recently Close Knit Sisters. And I'm very happy and proud that personally I was able to help salvage a restaurant that was about to go under. And now they're back and running, and it means 6 people still have a job, and that's important. The diversity of our counselors represents the diversity nationwide. In our case, we have people who are expert in marketing, sales, business startup, business plans, production, accounting and finance. Most recently we brought an individual on who is very expert in using Facebook for the purposes of marketing. What I would urge people to do is to go to our website, Mount Washington, mtwashingtonscore.org. And there you will find a variety of options, including if you're looking to be mentored or need help from a counselor, you just click on Mentor. You follow the website instructions as far as the various options that you have, puts you into the system, and within 24 hours, if the system is working, you'll be assigned a counselor. There's also the opportunity to go to Big SCORE and expose yourself to just a whole wealth of documentation, templates, marketing plans, and if you can't find the expertise that you're looking for here locally, you have the opportunity to tap in to SCORE nationwide and get mentoring support from a counselor, say in California, Idaho, Georgia, or wherever has particular expertise in what you're looking for. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to sponsor this morning, and thank you.
Okay, without further ado, now that Tim has had an opportunity to catch his breath, we're going to hear about something that most of us weren't even aware existed. I acknowledge my personal ignorance. So, Tim, please educate us.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Timothy Egan. I'm here as the president of the New Hampshire Production Coalition. I have a few things I want to say, but at any time, if people have questions, feel free to raise your hand, interrupt me. I would like to make this more interactive so that I'm not just droning on for 11, 12 minutes, and then you go, what else is he going to say? I want to start by thanking Linda and Jack Cuddy and the folks here for having us, as well as it's interesting, I've worked with SCORE through work with Junior Achievement, and I've worked with the New England Electric Co-op through my work with the New Hampshire Canada Trade Council, so I can attest both organizations are quite valuable. So let's start with why I'm here. So I spend my time as a communication strategist. I research and build relationships with people and try to implement and analyze the media industry and how people can utilize it. And as the business representative for the New Hampshire Canada Trade Council, I get involved in their communications issues. I work with, as a public relations consultant to the New Hampshire Canada Trade Council, and all of these organizations have sort of helped me focus on New England and North Country economic development. So part of the bigger picture of what the Economic Council does here, I felt there was a synergy of why should I come here and talk to you. And add to that part, I've spent the last 20 years as a writer, producer, director of packaged programming, documentaries, commercials, public affairs campaigns. So the idea of being able to how to analyze an audience, hone the message, deliver cost-effective communications, and distribute that content to outlets is something that I enjoy doing, and then being able to sort of share that with folks that are in the business industry and how to utilize the media, and maybe I could be of value. And then I spent the last 20 years as part of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the folks that bestow the Emmy Awards. I ran their New England chapter. I'm now the National Marketing Chair. But what that's done is allowed me to better understand the impact that the entertainment industry has on workforce and on a local economy. And then part of my background and part of my current work up here in moving to New Hampshire in 2009, I've been an adjunct professor at Curry College in Milton, and I'm now sharing some of that knowledge at Plymouth State, Linden State, helping the Littleton Hugh Galen Career and Technical Center roll out their video production curriculum for high school students. And the part of aspect that excites me is that, seeing students who want to get into this industry and where the entertainment and communications industry can take them as a career opportunity. So you roll that all up together, and the reason why I'm standing here as the president of the Production Coalition is Commissioner Van McLeod and Matt Newton, who's the New Hampshire Film Office Director I've known for a few years. And as they began to think about pushing the entertainment industry growth in New Hampshire, they asked me to get involved. So they corralled a few of us, one of my cohorts you may have met this morning, Deb Franke is here. And Ben said to me, well, you understand media and you understand politics and you understand economic development and you understand education, and those are all things that tie together in growing an entertainment industry. So I became a founding member, and I think I left to go get a drink of water, and I came back and they made me president. But seriously, I took that as a level of respect that I've sort of driven some nonprofit organizations before and moved them forward. The Academy, worked with the Massachusetts Production Coalition, a couple other nonprofits, and the idea of being able to sort of figure out how to get folks who are willing to give a little bit of their time and make that time most useful for the ultimate goal. So that was something that we started in late 2011, and then I was excited when Governor Hassan made part of her policies for her campaign and for the state to look at innovative economy focus, and that's what we are. So I'm excited to have the coalition be part of this effort. Who we are, the coalition is business owners that are trying to grow companies in New Hampshire. We want to be able to build a vibrant and well-funded industry and film office and make sure that that's available for folks. We have an office that exists that a lot of people aren't aware of, the services that it can provide, whether you're in the state or from out of the state. So that's in a part of attracting new business is profiling them. Not me, it's the sleep mode. But the entertainment and communications industry is poised to grow here because there's always a consistent need in the industry for content, whether it's packaged programming, reality programming, commercial programming. That's something that we feel can drive revenue for the state's general fund. And the state structure for businesses is easier than most states. we all know the benefits of being a New Hampshire resident running a business. The geographic landscape is something that is unique and interesting. I'm just going to make that go away. So that creatives will want to come here between, we have the mountains and the ocean, and they're only a few miles apart. Not many states have that attribute. There's a young workforce that's eager to be employed here. We don't want them to leave. We're a rapidly aging state, and our workforce that comes out of schools are looking at other places saying, well, what's here for me? There's more of an entertainment industry for me in New York or Los Angeles or Boston or North Carolina. We need to give them a reason to stay here. And then technically and artistically, there is a lot of creative content resources here in New Hampshire. The New Hampshire High Tech Council has done a good job of promoting the infrastructure and the technology that's available, and they've been putting their energies towards defense, software, energy, but there are a lot of technical products that are utilized by the entertainment industry in graphic design, video production, animation. Those are all attributes that are already here that could be tapped into. So part of the goal of the coalition is to try and, be outwardly reaching to, we'll call it the Hollywood community, whether it's in Los Angeles or New York, but also be able to try and grow business from within, because that's how the state succeeds. Yes, transient film business comes in, leaves revenue behind, and they go home, but growing small businesses that can add jobs and create value to our infrastructure, that's an equal part of it. So that's a little bit about the strategy and our goal. We have 4 or 5 core mission points that I just want to talk to you about. One is establishing New Hampshire as an attractive, vibrant, and financially competitive environment for all manner and size of production activity, both commercial and non-for-profit. 2 is advocating for the industry in the state and the greater Northeast by playing a major role in the efforts to establish a New Hampshire's a viably or nationally competitive production tax incentive, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Partnering with the state's diverse business, creative, and labor and educational and arts communities in order to establish an effective and financially attractive network of businesses and organizations involved in the many aspects of the production process. And promoting New Hampshire nationally as a major industry player in the production center that allows it to be used as a what we call a picture postcard. A key attribute of that is every time someone sees a location in the state in an entertainment product, they say, I wonder what that would be like to go there. So we're sort of supporting tourism without the tourism office, without having tourism fund efforts to promote Mount Washington or, parks. On Golden Pond, I tell this story and I beat people to death with it, that every time I walk by the Boston Common and I see 3 or 4 people standing there and they're looking at the Hampshire House like this, and I go, looking for the Cheers bar? And they're there to look for an awning for a television show that went off the air 22 years ago. And they're still coming for that. The last key part of our mission is expanding the industry's contribution to the state's creative economy. We can't exist in a box and go, we want to make more TV and film projects here. If we're not helping create graphic design houses so that kids come out of schools and they actually have someplace to go, or supporting construction companies who, in the off time of home building, guys can work on set building. If we're not supporting antique stores who should be listed as property stores for films, those are all essential parts of expanding, the creative economy. It's not just if you have a camera and can shoot something. It's the ancillary businesses around it. So one of the things that I think is important to talk about a little bit is sort of, why we're doing it and what we're doing. Our industry has been quite financially viable since the 2008 market correction, and the entertainment industry is the leading export in, someone jump in the room, is the leading export in for the United States. You know, the success and the growth of the entertainment product is something that, in just one sector of the entertainment industry in North America, the film industry generated $40.8 billion in revenue in 2011. So globally, it generated about $88 billion in revenue. So those combination of potentials of industry are being tapped into every state in New England. In 2011, Massachusetts saw $448 million in filmmaking. Connecticut saw $609 million in filmmaking, and I say filmmaking, it's film, television, creative video product. Maine saw 48, Rhode Island saw 69 million, New Hampshire saw 1.8 million. So we're not even putting ourselves in the game, let alone in the game, we're not even standing on the sideline in a uniform being ready to say, put me in, coach. We're telling the industry, don't come here. Part of what the coalition is to tell everybody, you know, here's some reasons to come here. We want you here, and when you come here, we will help you the best we can. You know, our industry is pretty unique. It's not just programming. It's direct-to-video educational content, advertising, video games, web video content, all of the supportive crafts that help execute those products in industry sectors. So we see ourselves as a viable economic development opportunity or tool that is also a clean business. You know, we barely impact the environment. It uses local talent, local vendors, local services. It develops an economic development multiplier based on production dollars when they come and spend. So say a film comes in and they utilize a rental company and they hire and rent some trucks, and then they have to put an extra person on for that week. So now there's another person getting salaried or, you know, part-time work, and then that person goes home and says, you know what, I got a little extra money in my pocket, maybe I can take the family out for dinner. Now he's going to the local restaurant. Maybe I can get the kids some new clothes, you know, patronizing a local business. So that's sort of that economic development multiplier that we feel is important. And as well, you know, there's a side benefit. The marketing tool has been used tremendously by states like Louisiana, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. They have utilized the film industry to jumpstart an economic growth and basically nurturing the film and television industry and turning it into a marketing tool for their state. So the last thing I want to sort of end with is one or two things, and then really what I want to do is make this a little bit more of a conversation. You know, the coalition started in 2011 with about 7 people. We're roughly 80, 90 members now, including some corporate members. We have bi-monthly events. Now, in April, we'll have one at Plymouth State. In June, we'll have one down at WBIN. In the fall, we'll have one at Keene. You know, it started out with a handful of people sitting around a table figuring out, should we call legislators? Should we call business leaders? What should, you know, let's sort of start beating the drum. So what we're doing is working. And we feel that we've been, you know, very aggressive with our outreach and very receptive. New Hampshire Public Radio, Hippo Press, New Hampshire Business Review have all done coverage and begun to talk with us frequently about, you know, the goal of the entertainment industry. But also our efforts are paying off in a different way. And I just want to read you this letter that I received on February 10th in advance of one of our hearings that we had at Ways and Means about one of our bills. And it says, I'm a New York-based filmmaker, originally from Lee, New Hampshire. I'm the director of this film set in the 1600s, and it's supported by the Sundance Institute. And we were projected to shoot this fall, and we've scouted in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts and in Canada. And I was in New Hampshire last week for fun, scouting around on my own and saw great locations, and I always knew I'd love to come back and shoot in New Hampshire, but I couldn't. And then there's that dreaded tax credit hurdle. My producers and I never seriously considered New Hampshire because there's no incentive, and which is such a critical element of the business these days. You can imagine how happy I was when I saw an article about the proposed incentive. I'm wondering, what is that status? When do you think it will be offered? When is this submitted? When will it theoretically be passed? Is there anything I can do to help you? So just by our efforts, people are beginning to get engaged. So let me update you. House Bill 540 is something that is a production incentive tax credit. We were retained for study, which was, in our opinion, a good thing, because initially when you present a bill for an industry that doesn't really exist, and there's never been any framework of legislative understanding for it. We're starting from scratch. So happily, we were retained 17-1, which means that most of the House Ways and Means Committee felt it was worthwhile studying. So we're working now with a subcommittee to tweak the bill, engage other New Hampshire organizations for economic data, and then be able to present to the legislature a bill that the industry and Ways and Means feel is the best for the people in the economy of New Hampshire. You know, we're growing our membership, which is has to be and must be more than just production folks. You know, shop owners for props, carpenters, and retailers for set building, and supportive industries like caterers, rental companies, rental car companies, and hotel owners. And if you can think of an item or a service that might be used on a movie set or a made-for-TV movie or a TV series or a commercial or even a corporate video, and you sort of close your eyes and think, you know, that scene and what's in there, all of those businesses that either make, sell, or deliver that product is part of this industry and should be part of our membership. And that's why we feel it's important to talk to not just, you know, production classes at schools or, you know, legislators, but talk to folks in a variety of businesses. So with a vibrant membership and a strong voice, it helps us gain attention from the industry in New York and Los Angeles and the legislature, and hopefully then it results in our goal of bringing new business to the state of New Hampshire, because as I mentioned, we are 48th in terms of net gross revenue from the entertainment industry in the state, and any dollar is a new dollar. So that's my little spiel, but I'd love to get your questions and make this a little more discussion for as long as you want.
Do you have a copy of that bill that you can actually read, the 540 that you just mentioned?
Yes. On NewHampshireProductionCoalition.org is our website, and the bill is posted there, as well as a bill summary. Because if you've ever read a legislative bill, I would have more coffee before you read it. Quickly, it is as it sits now and will be tweaked, it's a 25% rebate on your BPT and your BET based on the percentage of spend in state and a percentage of total amount spend. And that's how we're utilizing that.
Is that typical from other states?
Most states are in the world of 20 to 30% utilized on some type of tax. In Massachusetts is on sales and payroll tax. New Orleans is on sales, on payroll tax. So they're all different. We don't have either of those, so we tried to apply it to the BPT and the BET. Some states have caps, and a cap is the amount of dollars that they will allow to exit the state. And when I say exit, most of them are related to two factors. One is a refundable tax credit, which means you get a certificate which you can use to offset your taxes for your other business or your business in general, or transferable and refundable, which means you could sell your tax credit to big corporation for 80 cents on the dollar. You take your 80 cents, keep funding new productions. Big corporation takes your certificate and says, hey, Department of Revenue, we have the certificate, reduce our taxes by X amount. So those are sort of the three complexities: percentages, cap, and refundable, transferable. The only other thing that sometimes comes into some of these are what they call sunset provisions. They're not necessarily common. You either start working with a tax credit or you don't. A sunset provision says, we're going to incubate this industry and let it go, and if it succeeds, great, but it's only got 7 years to do it. Right now, we don't think that's viable because we're starting with nothing. If in 5 years, business is growing and the state's saying, hey, we're getting business, but we're also losing revenue, great, let's now find a sunset there. We have actually something that should be able to grow on its own, and at some point, yes, you can phase this out.
private colleges in our state, how many of them have majors or even minors in whatever you call this industry? Is it filming? Is it whatever?
They're all different. I would say almost every school has some facet of it. They either have a journalism program where folks want to go into the broadcasting and documentary business. They have a communication studies program where they want to go into public relations and marketing and advertising. They have a film studies program where they purely want to focus on motion picture or creative filmmaking. There's broadcast journalism. So almost every school has a different facet of it. Even some of the business programs look at the entertainment industry side, from the idea of manufactured U.S. product and how it's distributed globally. And when they look, and there's always a lot of, believe it or not, the Harvard Business School studies a lot of the entertainment industry and the way that, say, a Paramount or a Warner Brothers rolls out and markets globally an entertainment product, because it is a fascinating financial venture study.
So that said, you work closely with all of them as far as
We're trying. We're candidly just getting started. So in the last 6 months, we've engaged Southern New Hampshire University, Plymouth State, Linden State, which technically isn't even in New Hampshire but deals with New Hampshire, Keene State. We were down at sort of in conjunction with UNH at New Hampshire Public Television. So we're open to ideas. We're growing this group as we go on. So part and parcel is certain aspects. We had to stay focused on our legislative efforts between January and now. Now, as we get into the spring and the summer, membership and what we call sponsorship, which is really more partnership, is stuff that we're going to be focusing on more. So if you have other school relationships, that's, we don't know where everyone is, so.
Well, I'm just thinking because kids here always think about Linden State as a place, or they have in the past, I don't know today, but I never heard people staying in our own schools and universities and colleges to study those pieces, but I'm glad to hear we have that.
So.
What kind of hindrance or barriers are you finding in trying to get this passed? I mean, what's going to hold it up?
The idea, on a tax credit, the idea of giving state revenue away, but my logic is right now we're seeing zero. So are we willing to take $5 and give $1 of it away to get $4 that we never had before? Now I can understand if you were, if we were, generating millions of dollars in tax revenue and you wanted to have a tax break, I could see the concern saying, well, the economy is still not in full swing in New Hampshire. So that's one aspect. The only other hindrance I see is that people don't understand the economic power that an entertainment product can have. I think we're all used to running our business and understand that my customers are within a certain area, and if they leave or if I'm not attentive to them, then I can go out of business. And if I'm not keeping up technology-wise, I can lose customers because of dissatisfaction. I think with the entertainment industry, because part of it, a good 50% of it, as we look at it, is this transient business, it can come in at any time. And it can leave, that's the bad side, is it can leave at any time, which is why the other 50% of what we call the brick and mortar side of the business is an equal important focus for us. But understanding that a movie, and one that we sort of, in a real world study, a movie called Labor Day, which was written based on Joyce Maynard's book, New Hampshire writer, New Hampshire story, came in and assessed, that they would potentially shoot in New Hampshire or in Massachusetts. They shot one day at Kennedy Lake Park and shot 22 days, Deb, in Massachusetts. They spent $72 million in 22 days. And then didn't put kids in schools, didn't need to, utilize, hospitals, didn't need to overwhelm the system, but came in, spent that revenue, and then left. So that's getting people to understand that that potential is there. I think the other side of it is also understanding that on the brick and mortar side, yes, businesses as they build will, have families that move in and put kids in schools and need to have healthcare services, but they'll be buying homes and paying property tax, and they'll be contributing to, the local economy because they live here. And that's the idea of building brick and mortar businesses. They'll be hiring, they'll be creating jobs.
Well, what goes into a decision like that? Why did they choose to shoot 22 days in Massachusetts and spend all that money there as opposed to someplace in New Hampshire?
Because Massachusetts has a 25% tax credit, which is a refundable, transferable 85 cents on the dollar tax credit. So basically they can come in and spend $100 million and realistically only spend $75 million.
Is Maine at that same rate?
Maine's credit, I don't know, it's off the top of my head. Maine, it's interesting, there are 5 states in the country that don't have film investment or production tax credits. New Hampshire and Vermont are 2 of them. And at the bottom 5, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont are all in the bottom 5 of the film industry. The only one.
So if that tax credit's in place, and it's kind of a level playing field from that standpoint, then is the decision just based on location and what people are seeing for what they want, or are there other pieces too that also kind of entice them to either go to Massachusetts?
There's a trifecta of things. Having a stable or ready workforce. 40% of IATSE members in the IATSE, which is basically the production trade union, 40% of those members don't live in Massachusetts. They live in New Hampshire or Rhode Island. So the workforce is here. They look for access to locations. North Carolina, Louisiana, Chicago, and Massachusetts have something what they call a fee-free location, that you can use any state property for no fee. Now, when they come there, they will need public safety services, they will need maintenance services, all those other things that a state agency could bill them for, but they're not saying, you want to come shoot at the Weeks Homestead in State Park, and we're going to charge you, $1,000 a day. They say, come and shoot at the location, it's $0. So that's something that we don't even have, we're not promoting. Another part of it is candidly, giving the legislature an understanding, or the Department of Resource and Economic Development, an understanding that the film office needs to be able to sort of say, hey, we're open. I'm not asking them for paying for junkets, but what I'm asking them is for the film office to be able to go to trade shows where producers are and have a booth that says, New Hampshire, we're open for business. Here's our brochure of great hotels that you can shoot at and stay at, or ponds and lakes. And so part of it is making sure the rest of the marketplace in the state is matured and the pieces that they would look for are organized. So, because yes, a piece of legislation could be passed, but that just doesn't automatically open things. I didn't do it.
And so, what the legislators need to understand is that what they're giving away with this bill is 25% of that 1.8 million we have now to possibly get the 72 or the 50 or some other, a bigger chunk of.
Yeah, and right now that 1.8 is basically made on independent products that are already here. That's, Josh Whedon is a New Hampshire resident who made an independent film. I think half of that total number was his $800,000 spend.
And that's not necessarily to say, there's certain criteria of what actually will qualify for those dollars
for the tax credit. It's not just, from 0 to whatever is going to qualify. You have to cumulatively be over a certain amount, or certain parts of your production apply to the tax credit. It's not just...
Right. One of the things that we were wary of that we put a ceiling on was above the line salaries. So there's a $2 million cap on talent salaries, because no one wants to say, well, we gave a tax break to Tom Cruise because he's already making $12 million on the picture. So we said talent fees will cap at $2 million. Really, that's a realistic number when you're making an independent film where you're going to hire not one $10 million talent, but you're going to hire 7 people that make $250,000. A Lifetime made-for-TV movie, their average budgets are about $680,000. They'll hire 2 or 3 or 4 talents that get paid $150,000, $200,000, within that, and their production costs are skinnier and more mobile. And what they'll do is they'll shoot a lot of locations with the same crew and create, packaged television programming. And those are areas that I think, when you also asked about, what has been promoted is that potential, that there are 582 different cable channels. Yes, don't ask me how I know that, but that's my job. So think about every cable channel that you go, what's on? Every one of them has to make programming, not just Paramount and Disney and Warner Brothers that you go see in the theater, but every reality show, whether there's the ones that are worthwhile watching, or there's the ones that are a little more vapid that you care less to watch. Every documentary, every PBS series, every educational series, all of these channels need to constantly create content. Announced this week, CNBC has changed their programming from 7 o'clock on now, business reality shows. It's not going to be, Hoarders. It's like, if anyone familiar with the show Hoarders? Yeah. So it's not going to be that. It's going to be like Hoarders on Wall Street. Actually, that already exists. But the idea of, let's take a look on how a business gets built. And for the CNBC audience, which is investors or business owners or CEOs, they're going to be intrigued by, how is someone building their business? How are they reaching their customers? CNBC. I mean, I understood it when it was Discovery and Animal Planet. And then I was like, okay, why is the learning? The Learning Channel, educational stuff, and now it's CNBC. So every channel is looking for this content, and it's got to be produced somewhere. And what happens is, if you go out to a restaurant and you like the restaurant, but you say, you know what, I've had 2 or 3 of the same dishes, I want to try something new. That's the programming business. They're always looking for something new. So, other?
I just wanted to, Tim, I wanted to say one other thing, just to maybe give people a better understanding of the power of a tax incentive and what it does. Adam Sandler, most people would know who Adam Sandler is, grew up in New Hampshire, had a movie, wanted to produce in New Hampshire. The power of, someone, a key celebrity in it, has something to do with the actual production, the writing of it. Even though it has the ties in New Hampshire, they scouted around in New Hampshire, replicated Lake Winnipesaukee, water scenes out of state in Massachusetts. Arrowhead Diner in New Hampshire. Wanted to shoot there. What they did was they actually replicated that in Massachusetts because they have an incentive there. I mean, this particular Arrowhead Diner is, they have expanded their, 10 restaurants because of the exposure that they had in Massachusetts, which they couldn't, do in New Hampshire.
He does wear UND sweatshirts though.
See, and that's, when you asked another thing about what we can do, that's a part of it that I'll give credit to to Louisiana and Massachusetts. They have tapped into their homegrown talent. The kids that have, I'll use, Massachusetts because it's easy. The kids that go to Emerson, and when Jon Stewart came, when Jon Stewart wanted to do a program around the Democratic National Convention, he came back and rented a studio at Emerson and hired all Emerson students to work as the crew. So when you have that celebrity power, So that happens. So we have to figure out how can we do that, with Adam Sandler or Mike O'Malley and other people that are successful and say, and it's easier for them when they can say, hey, look what they're doing in New Hampshire. They're doing all this stuff. Why don't we go do something there? If he has to throw us over his shoulder and drag us, it's going to be harder for him to go into the network boss and go, well, why should we go there? They don't have an incentive. The state isn't open for business. The film office isn't calling us saying, come, come, come.
And just one other thing, just so other people in the room understand that impact, it's not just if you're in the industry and it's all the businesses that having somebody come to this area, how they're affected. So your business, consequently, if people are producing, they're gonna come and, they have to hand out permits to people. They're gonna use local businesses because it's cheaper for them to get their work done here where they're actually on location than, having it trucked in from outside. Or, extras might get paid on set by debit card. So they're gonna go to a local bank and they're going to, issue all of those, and the funds that they're going to use to pay people, they're going to use out of those local banks. So that power in the legislature of the peripheral businesses that are affected by our business within a community, I mean, it's trickling.
It's easy. So Deb is our coalition vice president, so she speaks eloquently. The key is that when a production comes in, part of what makes them financially viable to take the show on the road is buying local is cheaper and easier. If they have to ship everything from back lot in Los Angeles, it's expensive. If they have to bring all the crew up from New York, it's expensive. So what they hope is that there's about, I'd say about 80%, 70% of the crew that they should be able to hire locally. They are going to bring in a director of photography. He or she might not necessarily be even from the United States. It's going to be, I want to work with this guy, and it's a craft. So they'll bring in a DP. They might bring in a lighting director. They might bring a set director. But everything else, the set director goes, great. I need a lead carpenter. I need a property master. I need 7 wardrobe stylists. I need 6 makeup people. That's where that labor pool comes from here. So, that's part of looking at the other businesses and the other local talent that needs to be developed. And that goes full circle back to if we're engaging the state universities and whether the state or private universities, and making sure that we're engaging the kids, we're coming to speak on their campus, we're bringing in guest speakers, we're getting them engaged in the program, and they're coming out eager and with maybe a little added advantage than other schools because they've been exposed to a little bit more. They're now a little more viable of a workforce. And then it's sort of a building, it's a building in waves. If they then can come out and get some experience because there's a local business that's generating, corporate video production or advertising, then when a motion picture comes or a packaged television series comes, they're ready for it. And that visiting production company can say, hey, look, yeah, we can tap into, there are quality production assistants who've been working on ad agencies, and there are lighting guys that have been working on local, TV spots and sports programming. So,
being a layperson, there's a lot I don't understand about this. But the solution seems rather simple. And what part of this equation don't the legislators or decision makers know?
the word tax credit is scary. It means I'm taking money that I already have and I'm giving it back to you. No state government wants to do that because they're always worried about, well, if I do that, then how am I going to pay for the schools and how am I going to pay for the health?
Others do.
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
What do you think?
That's what I thought.
Where's your
Peer pressure is in 45
States,
days.
I mean, but we don't have sales tax. We don't have state for them.
Where's your home?
I live in Bartlett.
Okay. I'd love for you to call your state rep and your state senator and
I'll go down and talk to Boss Hogg tonight when I
Seriously, but that's part of it, is making them aware, because
It's true.
the biggest issue, again, is it's back to this. Right now, we're getting zero. Is $4 out of $5 okay if right now we're zero? Wouldn't you rather go 0 to 4? Do we have to go 0 to 5 and keep all 5?
Because of the tax credit programs, right now the state has 2 of them. They have the CDFA tax credit program, and they have the engineering software
Yeah, the R&D.
development tax credit. In your perspective, the way they do the tax credits, they allocate X amount a year. And in most instances, they're assigned and they're used. So, bottom line is, as in layman's terms, is that we want to, what we're trying to do is pay the production companies or the filmmakers to come to the state and use our facilities. In paying them to do that, there's all kinds of residual benefits coming from it. How much, and I think the legislators have to look at how much are you asking for per year? If it doesn't get used, what happens to it? And it's a liability on the balance sheet for all those unexposed tax credits. So those are the things that need to be defined in a clearer fashion. But I think if you look at it as yeah, this is what we're doing. We're paying people to come here. That's the honest truth.
True.
And we're doing it through tax credit.
Right, we're giving them an incentive to come here, and hopefully they'll leave more, and leave more than they take. And Ernst & Young has a study that says they leave more than they take, about $8 to 1.
That's
I
kind
mean,
of where
when you talk about everybody here, right? Does everybody here know the New Hampshire tourism multiplier? Right? Tourism's great. It's an 8 to 1 return. The entertainment industry is just about the same thing.
And that's one thing that I happen to feel personally, about this area, having been here for 20 years. But it is a unique area. We have a lot to offer. I happen to know people just coincidentally that I, socialize with, that have had either, grown up in the area, came here on vacation. People know this area when you talk about it, and there are people, celebrities that frequent this area, that are film writers, and that come through here that would love to be able to bring their business here. And I just think, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for business owners, and there's an opportunity. And as a parent, one of the other reasons that that I'm involved in this. My children are not necessarily in this industry, but just as a parent of children, and someone that's spent time with other children in the area, there's not a lot of things for kids to to want to stay here and do. If you're not going to be in construction or potentially health field, it's a growth industry that is very diverse. I spent last week at Southern New Hampshire University looking for interns to come and work with us and help them, get exposure in the industry. And I said, I'm going to each and every one. And within the industry, networking in Massachusetts, here in New York, the number one thing that people will say to a kid that wants, how do I get started? How do I get started? Network. There's
Right.
no opportunity to work here in this industry.
There's another whole aspect that I didn't talk about, but I've talked about in the past. When California changed Prop 8, which was basically to do away with gay marriage, a majority of folks of alternative lifestyle said, so now there's no quality of life here for me as a person to live. The state financially is in shambles, so you want me to pay more taxes for rebuilding bridges and schools. And so they began to come to New Hampshire and Massachusetts because culturally we're more accepting. Creatively, there's more of an arts mindset that there's an industry to come to. In New Hampshire, there's a big long time history of theater arts. Massachusetts, it's between music and documentary filming, children's programming. So what we're getting now are people that are in a higher level workforce in decision makers, people running production companies for major entertainment celebrities who want to live here for quality of life. But after a while, they'll say, I can't do my business here. I want to try. So that's another, that's going to be a short window that we can capitalize on because, part of this is driven by talent. The industry is driven by, when Adam Sandler can decide that I'm going to buy for a month a closed Quincy high school and renovate it for a movie and pay the city of Quincy, Massachusetts $680,000 to rebuild their school, shoot a movie in it, and then walk away and go, here's your new school.
And I think what they actually did for the athletic field, they used what was a dump site. And they trucked in and they created this amazing park and, athletic field and facility for them to be able to use.
And left it behind.
And left it behind.
So what is, so far, have you been getting good feedback and as being accepted and heard in a favorable light? Or are you getting, now go ahead, you're crazy.
Our feedback is 80% good. Universities and folks around the educational world are saying, great, you're giving opportunities, you hopefully will help build opportunities for kids. Folks from a variety of communities are saying, we understand that we are tied with Florida as the 4th oldest population in the country. Yes, you're trying to keep our brain power here without leaving. And that's anybody, any industry leader. Legislatively, they're saying, we understand that you're trying to promote an industry that really isn't here. We're just sort of on the skid end of it. If you can grow a newer industry, uniquely shown by companies that want to sponsor us from wide-ranging areas. That want to be a membership sponsor, from technology and cable industry and the legislative, legal industry, and different places. So that's been good. I think the only bad has been folks around the fiscal policy wonk kind of folks. Some Financial Policy Institute blog was about, it was a shot of where the old man in the mountain was, and it had the Hollywood sign superimposed over it. And it says, Production Coalition wants to make New Hampshire, the next Hollywood Mecca. First of all, we're never going to be the next Hollywood Mecca, and I don't want it to be. What I want to be able to do is have some sort of solid infrastructure so that if people want to come and live here and do their business here, or come and work here because they want to come. I mean, a lot of these people that decide to make films go, well, I want to go live in Marin County in the wine country for 6 weeks, so let's go put the film there, and then I'm going to rent a house for the summer when the film's over. Who doesn't want to come live by the lake for 3 months in the summer in New Hampshire? I know, who wants to shoot a film and then be able to go in the fall and then go skiing all winter and say, so we have to understand that some of that's how it's driven, and if you can build an infrastructure that makes it easy for them to make those decisions. So that's really our pushback is stuff on the fiscal policy. And candidly, that's why we felt a win for our bill was a retained to study, because we knew we were sort of asking for a lot, but no one had ever asked for anything before. So a little bit was a lot. We were starting from scratch. So now it's like they were here, we were there, and the first thing we said was we're willing to go back and look at it. If we didn't file something, we'd never have this conversation.
What's your backup if it's inexpedient to move forward this year? Do you have enough power and strength to bring it back in the legislature another year?
Maybe you can get the Coen brothers to come in and do a documentary on the New Hampshire legislative process.
I won't tell you who, but a couple of the committee members said, well, we've been approached by people to make reality shows around the New Hampshire legislature. I'm like, yeah. You want? Oh, great, let's do that. Make sure they pay the state directly. The backup is to keep doing the other 4 or 5 parts that I think are essential to this, because if you do have a vibrant workforce, whether you have an incentive or not, you're going to be able to create jobs for people. If you're nurturing creatives and somebody says, hell or high water, I'm staying here and I'm going to make my project here, and I'm going to sign a deal with CAA and have an agent in Hollywood and they're going to represent me, but I want to live in Meredith. So that's why we can't be a one-trick pony of tax credit, tax credit, tax credit. It has to be, developing the infrastructure, creating a pipeline for kids to develop into careers, working with the universities so that their programs are well versed. A good side benefit of this is if we're doing that, then kids are going, do I want to go to Emerson, or do I want to go to NYU, or do I want to go to Keene? And maybe my parents don't have the money, so let me go to Keene because their program's just as good because they have visiting professionals. If we're doing that, then that kid is going to say in 3 years, I'm glad I came there and I want to work there. If we let him go to Emerson, he's going to, be on the next, plane to New York from Boston.
I have one question, and I find this very exciting, having gone to BU and being in the fine arts and the theater department downstairs, that we had different levels. And in working here on the board for the theater company, which is a fabulous theater company here, and film industry has always had a personal appeal to me. The question that I have in terms of it being a viable business in the state of New Hampshire, in all the areas that you're saying absolutely, but seasonally, because of our long winters, especially in northern New Hampshire, in terms of production trucks and different things like that, how do you see it? Like, for instance, Hollywood and New Zealand, which is really a big film industry now, they're dealing with also temperature and sustainability that way. How do you see that in the picture for New Hampshire in terms of actually selling it with that in mind?
I think that's where packaged television is key. If you can create, docu-reality type programming, why isn't there a program about the guys who helicopter into Mount Washington and rescue some kid that got lost hiking? Why isn't there a
wayward banker.
That's what I was thinking.
Why isn't there a documentary style program for public television on the history of the national park system, which was created by a New Hampshire resident? I mean, the Weeks Estate is a testament. If you've been there, it's a shame. It's closed. This is the guy who decided we should have a national park system. Mm-hmm. It's the content that's here. The history, the couple 100-year history of the state of New Hampshire makes it a story treasure trove. So that translates well to television. The other thing that I think you need to be pushed a little bit at some of the schools are also, internal production facilities. Can they do commercials and corporate communications, things like that can be done for businesses that could be done at a lesser budget than if you chose an ad agency or a production company in New York or Boston or Hartford. It could be an added advantage. So, figuring out how to utilize those facilities, and those are the things that are sort of the production ones. The creative ones are on the other side. Developing writers programs so that people are actually becoming script writers or episodic television writers. You need a laptop and a coffee shop. And in the winter, there's no more solitude for writing than sitting inside when there's 40 inches of snow outside. So.
Well, I have to say the roads are better here than Boston during the winter time.
But when you talk about,
Yes.
what to do during the winter,
Well,
there's those type of.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned what to do during the winter. I was thinking more transportation. Like, for instance, if you're in Vegas and you see the large production trucks, or California or something like that, they actually have to move from one site to another.
So it's having that logistical backup. Candidly, when you want to talk about like a logistical person that can spin plates, having a unit production manager, their job is to think 3 days ahead and 5 days back, and today, all at the same time. So they're usually thinking about that, but it's letting them know that those resources are available. That, okay, there are business owners with real estate, and they want to make sure that those locations are available, and that the film office knows, I'm willing to rent my warehouse. I'm willing to rent my strip mall that's got 2 empty stores in it. I'm willing to rent the couple homes that my real estate company owns because we bought them from upside down mortgage owners. So.
I'm excited and I want to applaud you for the efforts. I think it's fabulous. My girls have done casting in Boston and we'd have to drive 2.5 hours down. I mean, it's just wonderful to think that there's an opportunity for that within the state and with income. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's available in. I don't want to say it's available in every state. It more or less is. It's just that no one's been beating the drum here, and I was like, really, no one has. Well, I'll take a turn. Let's come on. So I don't want to talk all day.
I'm sure that Tim will entertain additional questions if anyone has. Here's a little gift
Oh,
and a
thank you.
certificate of appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think my gift that he is going to talk to Gene Chandler. I also want to make mention that our guest next month is going to be Governor Hassan, and it will be Jack at the
North Conway Grant.
North Conway Grant. So we hope everybody can come listen to Maggie talk about the economy and the direction she sees our state going in, and perhaps some of us can make mention, gee, there's an exciting new possibility.
You can show up for your event.
Hopefully she'll
We're
already
sort-
have it signed.
Yeah. Not that bad.
I wanted to say 2 things. One is, if everybody doesn't already know, this is John Callahan, who is our treasurer for the Production Coalition. He's a partner at Leon Retail and Roberts. They are our CPAs, mine personally as well, my business. And I have information here. I have some pamphlets. I also have membership information. If anybody is interested or sponsorship information, take it. You don't have to give me any money or anything today. Think about it. But and I would love to, if anybody were interested in being on a mailing list, email list, we can keep you posted on progress. But we'd love to have you come to our
Exactly.
Plymouth.
I'd love to have you on the mailing list.
Yeah.
Whether you decide to be a member or not, great.
Yeah.
But
And have
because if we can
people
keep you informed, that's part of it is raising the voice.
Right, and we welcome everyone to come over to Plymouth, which you don't get up here. There are many opportunities to be able to be with other people interested in the industry. So we'd love to have you join us in April there as well.